Prazer estar aqui estreando esse evento super bacana que a gente vai fazer todos os meses agora até o final do ano. O On Stage Talks, a gente está disposto a discutir todos os assuntos do show business que a gente precisa transformar nessa nossa nova fase. E, como não poderia deixar de ser, eu começo com 4 mulheres muito poderosas aqui comigo, a nossa professora Aline Duda, Stage Manager do Lollapalooza, que está ali trabalhando no Rio de Janeiro, mas achou uma brechinha para ficar pelo menos um pouco com a gente. Oi, Aline.
Olá, pessoal. Estou aqui hoje praticamente ao vivo. A gente tem uma gravação, duas sessões de gravação que vão acontecer de um stand-up que estreia em dezembro. Então, teremos novidades por aí. Estamos aqui na labuta, graças a Deus.
She's there working in Rio for 2 recording sessions for Netflix. A Gabi Lima, que é engenheira de áudio, também dá aula aqui no Stage Lab e também trabalha bastante com isso, está falando lá do Rio Grande do Sul. Eu tenho a Jackie Jackson, que ela é chefe de segurança do Coldplay. Oi, Jack.
Hi.
E eu tenho aqui também a Nicole Erin Massey, que é Production Manager da Billie Eilish. O que essas mulheres têm em comum? Hi, Nicole, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Essas mulheres não se perguntaram, eu posso? E foram fazer trabalhos tidos como trabalhos de menino. E estamos aqui começando nosso primeiro On Stage Talks com Boas Garotas Vão Onde Quiserem. O On Stage Talks, antes que eu me esqueça, é patrocinado com recursos da Lei Aldir Blanc pela Secretaria de Cultura do Estado de São Paulo. So, I will start with a question for all of you. Why did you decide to do a boy job?
I'll start with that. I didn't think I was doing a boy's job. I'm just getting the job done. I obviously, in my career, I've mostly only worked with men doing production, but I didn't seek it out because of that necessarily. But like I told you guys mentioned yesterday, I'm a middle child. I always wanted to be different. I wanted to stand out from my other sisters. And so I think that kind of follows into this world too. I always took different roles to try and learn and get to where I am now. But I never looked at it as a male job. But I also worked with male costumers when I was on the wardrobe team. I worked with male personal assistants. All these roles that are normally conceived as a woman's job, I've also worked with men doing those roles. So I think sometimes, yes, our world is very much an old boys club, but I think that it's been changing. I think we're seeing a lot more of that. And I think it's important for us women to support each other out on the road. There's times where it seems really scary when you have a lot of women, but most of the outcome is way more organized. It's, you have a lot of different vibes come into the scene. And I just think it's so important for women to feel empowered and that they can do any job on this tour, whether it's a video or lighting technician, or just like what I finally stood up and said, I want to be the production manager. And here we are. I said that to my mentor in 2018. And within about 4 or 5 months, I was starting with Billie. Like, she hadn't really fully hit right when I joined on. So I felt very it was interesting to be a part of something. So not only was my artist growing, but I was growing with her as well.
That's great.
What would you say, Jackie?
I think mine was a little bit different. I started working part-time. I had another job, a full-time job, and I started working at venues. And when I looked around, I never saw any women working. And then when I sort of asked the question, I just said, oh, you know, there's not women supervisors, there's not women managers. And I was told that the roles weren't normally done by women. And so I was like, oh, well, okay, so how do I get to that then? And that was the same thing my mentor said, well, you need to go through the training and see how you go. And that's how it started. So I was the same, wanting to see that I could do something. And I think I've always been like that. I've always taken on jobs that are never typically a role where you'd normally see yourself. And I think, well, I can do that. Even if I didn't know I could do it, I would have a go and build it to how I wanted it. And then I did all the training, and then I ended up running a venue that I started on the back gates because they said women didn't go into the venue. And then a year later, I was running it for a couple of years. So I think I'm the same as Nicole. I don't let anybody tell me that I can't do something. I find a way and I'll work it out how to do a job that I want to do.
Perfect.
Fabi, você tá mutada. Fabi?
Ai, desculpa. Aline, por que você resolveu fazer um trabalho de menino?
Acho que temos a Aline presa lá no backstage, no vortex do sinal parado do backstage.
I think Aline is having some type of technical issue.
She's frozen. She's so busy that she froze.
Gabi, conta você então, por que você
Gabi, tell us why you decided to do this boys job.
Working faster than the Wi-Fi speed, and she just froze. Yeah, so I agree with Nicole. Like I'm doing a human's job.
Correct.
I love music. I think music is the best. I've always loved music. I started playing music and then writing music, and then engineering was just another way for me to create music and to be near music and people making music. So my entire goal is just to like make music, and engineering is also a way to ensure people get to hear music. So that's just what I wanted to do. And then at one point, you know, you stop and you look around like, oh, it's just men. Yes. Mostly white men, mostly old white men. So yeah, I think it's important that we have different types of people, people of color too, and women, so we can have more perspective, you know, because I'm sure we all have a song to sing and we can all contribute.
E como vocês começaram a ser respeitadas? A Aline voltou.
How did you guys begin to be respected? Key questions. Why did you decide to do a boys job? I always thought there was never a difference. I really never said, if they can do it, I can also do it. So there's no reason for me not to be there. And this passion for the technical side of it gave me all the strength that I always needed.
Na técnica, como
My
para
role as a technician, or to go after what I'm looking for, to prepare, to be inside, have this difficulty or these challenges, let's say like there are challenges to deal with all of these demands, not only technical demands that we have to learn and such, but to be with people. There is prejudice, yes, and we have to be strong to be able to respect and be respected. So answering this second question, the first step for you to be respected is to understand the space of the other person as well. So, okay, yeah, you can have jokes, you can also know how to play the game and dribble, and I'm not going to enter this game where people like disrespectful. I have to show that I'm there to work, and I will have the same function as them, and we have to do it as a crew. So much of what we do, much what we need is to be prepared to combat in your head and professionally prepared, and to be ready to face these difficulties? What can be difficulties?
Você consegue traduzir, Gabi, para as pessoas?
Oh.
Can you translate, Gabi?
Yeah, she also she doesn't think it's a boy's job. It's her job, and I've seen her do her job. It's very complex, and yeah, she says that to be respected, you have to respect others too, and understand that you're part of a team. So you're also not gonna escalate when someone is just trying to provoke you and push you off your job. Acho que é isso, Aline.
É isso, Gabi, obrigada.
I think that's it.
And that she keeps trying to get better at her job and just being strong with herself. So she just understands, like, I have to be strong to do this job and just be as best prepared as possible. And I'm gonna add to that it's true that they keep an eye on us. Like, if we make like a minor mistake, if there's like one button on the console, like, oh, I don't know what this button do. Like I have to wear a shirt that says, yes, I know what all these knobs do. But they'll go like, oh, the girl doesn't know that thing. So yeah, you have to be on top of your game all the time, because you are gonna get questioned whether or not you know your stuff.
Yeah.
I think one thing she said too about being a team is important to any kind of leadership role. And I mean, Jackie and I have worked with Coldplay for so many years, and we always say that it starts from the top. And now it's the same with Billie. Like, to me, I treat Billie the same as the way I treat the 5th or 16th truck driver on the tour. We all need each other to get these shows on the road. And I think sometimes people lose sight that we are all working together for the good of the show. And I think sometimes people push and try and act like their agenda might be more important than somebody else's. But to me, the lighting guy, the 5th lighting guy on the team, the truck driver that you don't know about, the 6th bus driver, we're all playing a very important role making these shows off without a hitch. And of course, we can't do the show without the artist, but we have to have that outcome. And I think as a woman, especially in a leadership role, I think we should encourage more of that, because I find that, I just know we've all been there where somebody says like, well, these carps, they need to get in, and their staging stuff is more important. And it's like, no, everybody is here doing the best they can to make this the best show and the best evening for the audience. The audience are also part of this cog, because they're paying the tickets. If they don't turn up, we don't have a show. So we all have to work together. And I think that's so important, no matter whether you're a woman or a man.
And that is the best part of the day for me, when the artist goes out on stage and you've had the longest day. It's hard. There's all the different cogs that put together, and it all just slots into place. And then they walk out on the stage, and then all those thousands of people that, as Nicole said, have spent their money, are absolutely, they don't know what goes on behind. They don't see all of that, but that is what it's all about. And as long as everybody can play together, really, it really works. And as we say, there's at least 100 people in our core crew. And then you think of all the other people beyond that have to help get this show up and running. So it is. I know that's my best part of the day, when they step out on the stage. It doesn't matter. Every night you get goose pimples knowing that everything's gone right to get them out on the stage.
House Lights Go is something I surely missed in the last year and a half.
I have a question about the authority. Like, when you're on tour, or when you're doing your job, you have to be a lot of men boss.
Yeah.
So how does it work for you? I know Aline works with stage hands. You probably, Nicole, work with all those men in sound and in all the areas. Gabi works with stage hands and sound men. Jackie works even worse, like
We
with
have to work with
security guys. How does it work?
We have to work with everybody. I don't mind taking this one. The one thing that I think I've learned, and as Nicole mentioned earlier, we've become quite established. So people know we're coming and they know what our expectation is. And I know I've got a high expectation, as all the women here have, of ourselves. So when I, hopefully in the beginning when you're advancing it, but as soon as you begin to know people, one of the things I've learned, especially when we're going to other countries, is that we need to work with these people and they need to tell us how it works in their country, where sometimes in the beginning I didn't do that. I just thought, right, I know I need to get this done. But now I need to say, okay, this is what I need to do. How are we going to achieve that? Rather than, wanting to say, this is what I want. And some of the time I do that. I do admit that. But then other times I have to say, they say, well, this is how we're going to do it. And we have to work with the truck drivers. We have to make sure the buses all get in position. We have to do everything that makes it slot together and make sure the security are doing their job the best way they can. And I hope that over the years that I've learned to sort of try and take knowledge from other people.
I agree, Jax. I mean, we have to work with the local promoters, the people on site. I think that being authoritative is kind of comes along with the job, but I also think that if you do it in a kind manner, I like to lead in a kind way. I don't want to be a shouter. I've been around enough shouting men early in my career that I actually have looked at, I mean, not in recent, Billie Buddy, who helped me get into my role, is not a shouter. And I do think that it's also very effective when I do finally have to shout, they know that I'm serious because I've been treating you with respect and we are working on this and we have an end goal. But by the end, if you still need to raise your voice a little bit, then that's when you do. And they take you a little more serious because they know you haven't been just coming in hot from the get-go. So sorry about this, son. It's killing me. I keep moving. But I think that it's important that, we all stand our ground as well. But you do have to listen to the local teams because they might know something that we don't know. And, look, I was also even getting excited. I was about to have my first Madison Square Garden show as a production manager. And then the pandemic happened. It was the last show I advanced. And I thought to myself, like, oh boy, here we go. And Craig Goach, who's a longtime Live Nation promoter rep, I mean, he said to me, hey kid, we got this. Don't worry, we'll be there for you. We're going to get you through this. And again, because I have been going through these venues for the last 20, 25 years, we have established these kind relationships with people that do want you to succeed. And they're not just going to throw the New York Teamsters at me to die my own slow death, so.
Also, your own work is your calling card, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like they're going to know how you work. And just to tag along, yeah, I also like to introduce myself because I can't walk in like, oh, don't they know who they're talking to? Because they don't. Right. Like they don't assume I'm the, stage manager or the mixing engineer or anything. So I do introduce myself and say, oh, I'm the person you advance the rider with. And this is, what we need. And this is what we have. And this is what we're bringing in. And yeah, kindness goes a long way. But yeah, introducing yourself and making sure you also get the crew, like their names and call them by their names and just treat them with respect and expect respect back. I've learned that like learning their names is important. Sometimes bringing a little food from catering, if you can, that's like an extra tip because sometimes the local guy or girl who's setting up the back line is the same person who drove the truck at 6 a.m. and they haven't had anything to eat. By the time you get to sound check, they haven't eaten anything. So that's a Brazilian thing. Like that's what I learned. Like Jackie said, like if you ask for water in Germany, you're going to get sparkling water. So you have to know like anything like peculiar about the specific places. What would you say, Aline?
I know Aline is on a rush now because
there?
her
Aline,
artist
que
is
que você
gonna get
acha?
in.
Oh, she's gonna have to go. Oh no. Do we say goodbye?
Você tá mutada, Aline.
Oh, she's muted.
Yeah, she's gone. Well, funny enough, both Nicole and I are laughing because I have always been terrible at names. And that was one of the things she taught me, to learn people's names. And now I always make sure that I make sure I take care of all the drivers that are sitting out waiting on us. And, the local security person that I know has been on a door since the morning. I'll always make sure they've got water and that and I know everybody's welfare is taken care of. But as much as we can, we try and take care of people. And I think that's quite important. And I absolutely make sure I try and know everybody's names now. And I was terrible because we move so fast. You just don't, you're moving every couple of days, but you should always know your own core crew. And I think that is mega important. That is something I have learned over the years, to make sure I know all the crew's names.
Aline, voltou?
Eu tô aqui, mas eu preciso ir, que o meu artista vai entrar no palco em...
Okay.
Essa é um stage
Aline's
lab de
artist.
verdade, on stage.
Yeah, on stage talks. She's actually doing... It's a from stage talk. Querida, obrigada de qualquer maneira.
Desculpa não poder ficar até o final, mas...
Okay.
Have a great show.
Have a great show.
Have a great show. That's a shame.
Bom show, bom show, bom show.
That's a shame.
I was gonna ask Jackie because you're a security coordinator, do you travel with any security guards, or do you just use local crew?
It all depends how big the tour is. Normally, you can either just be one person if it's a small tour, but on what we're working on, we have 3 of us out doing venues, and somebody will take care, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about. There's the whole crowd management element of touring now is a big part of touring since what happened in Manchester with Ariana Grande. There is everything about safety is very important. So we've got a person who runs the front of house and takes care of all the gates to know how they're managed, how we get audiences in. And then I take care of sort of like the backstage and all the band liaison stuff with a colleague who we split the job because it's massive. As I said, Nicole knows. You've got a production manager who needs to get his trucks in place. He doesn't need your cars in the way. So there's all elements that you have to pull together to make sure it all slots in, which is what I've said. And it's a big job in terms of doing it on your own. And I did for a long time think, I could do it all on my own. But as I said, it's very, very hard to do. And at the tour we're on, they're not massive on having a massive security team because around the band. But we have developed that over the years, where there's the personal team who work with the artists themselves, and then we've got a venue team, and we liaise with the locals. So we always have a contact, and we work directly with each of the venues that we go to.
And because they'll know too, like how their venue works and
absolutely
where the extra back doors are.
Yes, and they can also show you where there might be people missing. And so you have your base, and I think that's going to change since the whole COVID thing. They're going to be more, and with what's happened in the world today, that's going to be slightly different. They will have more points they want to bring forward. So we'll have our idea of what we want, but then they will actually input into that as well.
Fabi, do we jump into the COVID protocols?
How is it working now? I mean, you ladies are not working with your full team. You're just working with part of your team because of this setup of your tours. I want to know, how is it working, and how was the feel of going back to the road, even if in a smaller situation?
I can definitely start with that because Billie's team, not everybody, of course, but a small part of us actually started working as early as last July. And we have been very, very strict in the Billie camp about COVID. We are taking it very seriously. And we also, we ask our crew members to not be out right now I'm currently in Austin, Texas, and it's a great food town and it's a great drinking town, but my guys will not be out on the town drinking. We're not saying that they can't have a life, but we encourage outdoor eating, outdoor drinking, but we're even careful about saying that, because once you have a couple drinks, you start to relax a bit, and that's not our goal right now. Our goal is not to necessarily have the best time in all these cities. The goal is to keep everybody safe from we don't want our entire team is a fully vaccinated crew. We also are being very careful about any time that we are working with outside people. So we've done all these shoots and we have a very strict testing regime. We're mostly being tested, I'd say, every 2 to 3 days. And, it might seem like a pain in the butt, but we're all really excited to be doing our jobs again. And I think that's the big thing. You either get in line and follow what a lot of these rules are made by the SAG and AFTRA and Directors Guild, to be honest. Even though we're not in those unions, a lot of these shoots, a lot of these shows, they follow the strict protocols of these unions, especially working in LA.
And NEVA too? I was going to jump in with
NEVA. Yeah. NEVA. And we did a NEVA project with Phineas, her brother.
With Robin at Telegram.
Yes, a Telegram. Exactly. It was such a good show.
My VIP pass wore out. But yeah, Robin's he's one of my mentors, Robin. And
he's so nice.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah. And I remember when they were developing the protocols for everything, it was just like so complex from like
we were even flying in generally like 2 to 3 days ahead of time. Anybody that had to fly in a couple of days ahead of time, have their first PCR test cleared, then we could start on the rapid program. But before we fly anywhere, even domestically, we try and do 2 days out. You're going to take even a rapid test, self-home test at times, but we want to make sure that we keep not only our crew safe, but we want to keep the shows going, and we also want to keep our audiences safe. That would be a terrible, headline to read anywhere, so many people got sick from this show. Thankfully, a lot of the festivals we're working with, we all have testing regimes for that as well. It is going to be a dictated between the promoters, the buildings, and the artists. So I think it's going to be a combination of working with everybody. Again, if you want to be on a different tour and not be wearing masks, even outdoors, we're implementing, even at outdoor festivals, our team is wearing masks. And if that's not for you, then I don't think this tour is for you, because this starts from the top again,
And that's what you have to do to make sure you can have a tour.
We want to keep working,
I agree 100%. We're only on promo at the moment. And we're running quite a strict, and we've all agreed, same as Nicole, that we're not out and about. We're not eating with loads of people, being in crowds, wearing masks all the time. We're all vaccinated, and we've been tested so much because we're dovetailing with buildings, the festivals. And also we have to remember we're traveling internationally. So we're all getting on planes. So we have to PCR test. And then literally as you get off, you need to test to go into a studio, or you need to test to go into a venue. So we're actually testing twice a week when we're at home, just because we are working, that we're keeping ourselves safe.
So you don't have the big plate of hummus dip anymore that everyone can dip.
Correct. No double dipping.
And the thing that for us, we've got a COVID officer, so you can always feel her looking and watch, and it's teaching us as well new things. And catering's now different. It's boxes, collecting, going and finding somewhere else to eat, buyouts a lot of the time, or you just or we're ordering in so people can go and find somewhere to eat that's in the open. And it will be difficult in the winter, but I think it'll be managed. Everybody knows they want to stay safe and they want to continue working.
Tell me about the COVID officer. Is that like a new an impossible gig for people. Like if you want to do lives, you don't necessarily have to be an engineer or a musician. You can be a COVID officer to join a tour.
I've got
You
a lot
travel
of
with the same.
multi-talented COVID officers. Right now, we're not physically traveling with one, but we've utilized a couple different for, when we have, say, 2 weeks in one venue, we definitely have a COVID officer there. But because I'm currently doing festivals, they have their own COVID officers at the festivals, but we are still self-policing. We are very good at telling each other if the mask has dropped below the nose. I find it silly to why even put it on your face if you're going to let it drop anyway. So what's the point? So I've been working with a lot of COVID officers that are out of work roadies as well, that have put in the time to learn and take the different courses. There's some really great things happening within our business. And I think the people that do have some COVID background as well can be utilized in double ways. Like, we're being very cautious and nervous about, we just don't want to lose those key roles that are really hard to just replace right away. I can be replaced because I can sit in an office and sit in a bedroom in a hotel somewhere, still advancing.
Send 50 emails.
Sending 9,000 emails a day. But obviously a lot of that advance is all up here in the head. So we really have to be careful and make sure that somebody else on our team is aware of kind of everything. And it's actually helping delegate a bit. But you have, say, your keyboard tech or your guitar tech who knows every single change in that show. Yeah, so we're also trying to have a backup. We even talked about maybe having somebody where they're on standby. They're just on a retainer sitting at home doing nothing. But, we haven't got to that point yet. But the COVID officer that I'll be using on our upcoming Phineas Club tour could also probably double as the keyboard tech. So we're trying to find people that want to maybe do both jobs. And hopefully he won't not have to do the keyboard job if we're doing the right things. And right now, I guess I'm just scary enough, and I give my team hey, you better not be doing anything like that. I give them the mom guilt. So I guess sometimes
hashtag mom, yeah.
Yeah, the female in charge gives them a little mom guilt. Okay.
And that's
good. It's a full change of the culture, the tour culture, isn't it? Like not to be together for meals and hanging around and all that.
I also think it's scary. We haven't had it much because we're actually a fully vegan tour. And so we're very conscious, for everything with the environment. Obviously, Coldplay is very much as well. But one of the big things that I'm finding when we go do other shows, they just have tons and tons of plastic individually wrapped things for you. I know that a friend of mine did some of the wrestling jobs and things like that. And it's fridges full of plastic, which I find is so sad because we were doing so well moving away from it. Now these individually packed meals that we have to eat, it's kind of hard seeing that. It's disheartening because we were so far along. Even all the wipes, they're terrible for our world, and now
everything is individually packed.
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully we're not going to have to be around, this will go on for a period of time till everybody catches up. And, I think it's quite important that, in our tour, we've got an individual doing the COVID job. And I think it's just getting people into good habits. Hopefully as we go along, maybe that will change. But at the moment, they are making everybody get good habits, about wiping.
They didn't know how to wash their hands before. I don't want them on my tour.
But it's something new. And I think while we've got the chance to use people to make sure, and also it's dovetailing because every venue could be doing it slightly different.
Correct.
Every festival could be doing it slightly different. So it's good that person's there to look at all of it. We're looking at, if you're testing, you've got your wristband on and everybody just glances at and everybody's been tested on that day. So I think that's quite important about keeping people safe. Because we all know when we're outside, people want to take their masks down. They do want to not have them on when they're outside. But at least we know when we look at their wrists that they've been tested and we know that everybody is vaccinated and that we're safe. obviously once on the inside and we're in a building, people have to, and we've had a few fights, a couple of buildings where people just want to go, trust me, I've been tested. And I think, well, no, hang on a minute, all our people have been tested. So you need to go test. You need to show that you've got a test with your wristband. And so it has been a battle for the COVID officer, and we won't give out credentials unless we know those people have got their test shown. Yeah. Because other people, everybody's at risk then. It's not just that one individual.
And then the tour stops.
And then none of us work.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yes.
Mirna, are you doing okay over there, Mirna? You're good? Jackie, I was going to ask you about meet and greets. Like, are you still having meet and greets?
No, we've made a decision right now not to do any meet and greets. We're not doing any sort of like social after shows. Just at this present time, that's what the band have decided. So we're just staying in a bubble, and no meet and greets right now.
Same on your camp, Nicole?
Pretty much. I mean, because we're not in a normal situation and just doing these festivals, there is some press and promo, but nothing where there's, 90 kids in a room waiting for her to give them hugs. And I think it would be really tough for Billie because she's so affectionate with her fans and wants to hug them all. And, they're an extension of herself, as she always says to people. And I think it would be quite hard and disheartening for her to just be like, hi guys, because she wants to hug everybody,
Are you doing anything like virtual meet and greets? Like
we actually did do a bit of virtual stuff. When we did a live stream last October, and we had pretty much a Zoom call during the show. During the show, we put them up onto the screen and she sang with them, and it was really beautiful. But at the end of it, she did go into the other room and actually talk to them virtually, and they were just through the roof because they were so excited that we were so like strict, like, you're not going to get to meet her, blah, 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 and of course she wanted to right away, can I go talk to the fans? And of course we wanted her to, we just didn't want to promise the kids and then it not happen. So it was even more of an exciting thing. She could actually see them on the screen. I'll tell you what, one thing, live streams are very hard on the artist because at the end of a beautiful song, you get this amazing applause and there's nothing in a room. So we, all of us pretty much, if you didn't have a camera or a piece of equipment in your hand, you were clapping and cheering during that. But we put a big, huge screen and she saw about probably 25 of her fans, and we would rotate the screens. So we had probably 150 fans that were watching, and she could wave to them and she could see them singing because I had it on a big screen. It really helped our live stream. Like, it helped her motivate her to do an amazing show because she saw those fans sitting on that Zoom. It was great.
Which show was that one?
We did last October. We did a fully live 45-minute AR and VR XR live stream. It was as a production manager. It was very stressful because you're relying on the XR and AR technology. We could only do as much as we can do, and we did everything we could for the live stream. But man, as a production manager, it was a stressful day.
It's like new things that can go wrong. Like, you got new things to worry about.
You're relying on technology so much in the XR world, and so it was great that it went off. It was really wonderful. So we had a wonderful time.
Well, that's what happened at Glastonbury last year, wasn't it? Where it was people paid and everything on the farm, and then they pressed the button and it didn't work. So it was really hard for everybody. Like, hundreds of thousands of people had paid to watch it and they couldn't get on. So I think it's a whole new element, but I know no artist has enjoyed the whole streaming element. Even though we're playing smaller audiences, I think 46,000 at Global has been the biggest that the guys have done since lockdown. But 150, 400 people, I think we played at the Apollo. And it was, it's just amazing just to have the audiences back in. It is hard with masks for the artists because people are wearing masks and venues are insisting on masks. But the energy of it, as Nicole said, is so important to the artist, and they want to be close to them.
Yeah. Our first show back for it was a Phineas festival show. For first audience for me was Bottle Rock, Phineas's Bottle Rock set. And I almost cried as soon as I heard that crowd cheer, because it's, you know, that's why we do this. We don't do this for the no sleep and the stress of it. We do it because we are making somebody's day. You know, we're making somebody's night. And when you hear that roar of the crowd, that's why we do this.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Awesome. Fabio, I have more questions, but do you have any questions you'd like to ask? Go ahead. Okay. I was going to backtrack a little bit because we were talking about starting. And also, I asked this on Instagram because people may see like Billie singing on stage with Phineas playing and then a drummer, and they think, oh, it's a small tour. Oh, it's a really small tour. We have maybe 10 people max traveling. It's a small party. But you mentioned it's closer to 100. So I wanted to know, like, people who want to work with touring and with live sound, and they don't have to necessarily be a band or the front of house engineer or the monitor engineer. What other options are there? What other jobs are there? Like, what kind of jobs you have in your, not that you have jobs available, but on your tour, like, who travels with you? What are they doing?
Okay, mine is pretty easy. It's kind of goes for both. We would have production manager, production coordinator. We'd have riggers who basically hang everything that's heavy above our heads. We've got, and I do know some female riggers too, which is great. I find that really inspiring. There's a female stagecoach person. She, every time I see her pulling chains and, you know, bringing the steel in, I'm just like, man, I want to be that girl someday. And I know I can't do it, but I mean, physically, she's physically fit to do that. We've got sound, of course, we've got the lighting team, we've got video team, we've got caterers, we've got special effects, we've got, we have a physio on tour, we have personal assistants, we have wardrobe, you sometimes have hair and makeup, sometimes have the dancers. You know, I started out as a dancer. And I think that you have your truck drivers, your bus drivers, you know, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much kind of across the board, especially once you get to be an arena or stadium level artist. These roles, you know, obviously we've got security, you know, we've got tour management, we've got band assistants, we've got like, and I honestly, when I think about every single one of those roles, I probably know a man or a woman that have been in those positions. It does not matter. If you're so into cooking and you want to travel, I always tell people like, oh man, like you should be a touring chef. Like we have companies that go on the road with us, you know, like I said earlier. Options. Yeah, we have Eat Your Hearts Out as our caterers. They're out of the UK. Oh. I've known Kim for, I always joke that I was feeding her daughter like when she was a baby, but now I have her daughter out as like our, you know, catering coordinator, and she does all the backstage hospitality as well. But, you know, having something so specific like vegan catering, it's really hard to rely locally, you know, and so specific. So, and they could say like, oh yeah, it's all vegan. And then I'm like, is that chicken in that? You know, like, so there's so many things that you forget. Like people are always like, wow, that job is on tour. Like, yeah, you could go on tour and travel the world and be a chef. And you might not cook in a glamorous restaurant. You might be cooking on the loading dock, but you're also cooking like restaurant quality food on a loading dock. So it's really interesting to me. Yeah, marrying all those roles together. I honestly, I don't know of one role that hasn't been done by a woman. So people listening, you can do any job on tour you want to do. You just have to work hard.
Yeah. And it's hard. It is hard. You can't be late. You cannot be late. It's very long hours. You have a job that you know, as Nicole said, we need to start thinking that if somebody got sick, is there somebody to do it on backup? But usually you have to stay healthy because nobody can do your job. And, you know, you need to be at the airport extra early. So everything is long hours, but it is great fun. You get to see so many different places in the world and get to meet loads of different people that you'd never get to meet. And you don't always tour with exactly the same people. Sometimes you'll have a core crew of people which you'll see, but you'll always meet different people in different countries, in different venues. So, and I agree, you are beginning to have women on all those roles now. I remember when I first pulled into a venue and I saw a female lighting person on the dock, and I couldn't stop looking out the window to say, oh, that's a woman doing the lighting job. And she went on to do different things. But you always seem to seek out people when you see other females, because we are few, but we are getting more. And it's nice to support each other, just to welcome them and say, you know, glad you're here. And it's fun to be working with other women.
You also have to save a shower at the end of the night just for the ladies, because you don't need 50 men walking in on you trying to get your 10-minute shower at the end of the night to jump on the tour bus. So we tend to try, any tour that I've ever been on, I've always tried to designate a shower just for the women. I mean, it's usually one of the best ones anyway.
It's gonna be the cleanest and nicest.
Cleanest, exactly.
Oh, there's a question from Maria Paula Dias. Como entrar no mercado, mesmo sendo na fila, como fazer parte? You kind of answered this already, but let's go specifically for Maria Paula Dias' question. How to get into the industry, even if you go in the line outside, how is it possible to be part of it?
I always tell, a lot of people ask me this question, and it is crazy because a lot of times it is, you're in the right place at the right time. But I always encourage people to work with their local promoters. We, you know, find out who the local, you know, person is. Like, I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, and, you know, I could have, you know, fought and gone to, say, Hershey or Philadelphia, where these other bigger shows are happening. And there's always, you know, people that might take you under their wing, or, hey, this girl is real go-getter. Like, we want to figure out, like, is there a job for her? I've even hired people that are working as a runner, basically, you know, doing the jobs, like going and picking up things that the tour needs, you know, and then we're like, man, this person is really great. Like, and you're needing one more assistant on the tour, and you're like, what about that runner from Tampa that was so good? Like, should we give them a job? You know, like, so it's a different thing nowadays, because when I was first starting, there were no schools that did live production or live, you know, you have Temple University doing big things in Pennsylvania now. You have, you know, in the UK, they're starting to do a lot of different event production university things now too. It's not just like these side things, it's actual big universities doing a lot of this stuff. USC in California has a huge program for live events. I mean, there's so much more now for classes. Like, I wish there would have been classes like that when I was younger. I would have jumped in all of them, and to be honest, I probably would have been a production manager earlier than what I am. But obviously most of my knowledge has come from the many years on tour and learning from different mentors, and learning just from failing too. We all make mistakes. And I think sometimes the biggest thing that I tell people in this industry is, it's okay to not know something, but you should say, I don't know that, but let me get back to you, you know, or let me figure that out for you. It's okay not to know everything. And trust me, I mean, I have to rely on a lot of my staff. There's times where the video director is talking to me about 1080 and HDMI and to SDI, and I'm looking at them like, I really don't know what you're talking about, but I'm glad I hired you. No, it's you have a general knowledge of these things, but it's okay to not know everything. And you need to rely on your staff for those things. I'm sure Jackie agrees.
No, I agree. And then, as I said, Nicole's already mentioned, there's a lots of courses. And as I said, the industry's is really changing. We're looking more at crowd management, and there are a lot of courses here that people are now doing to be able to understand how crowds work. And, as I said, the world's a different place. So it's a way of getting in. When you've got a qualification, you can put that out to a production manager, or you can put that out and say, I have this qualification. I'm really keen to learn if you want to tour. And it has been up to now who you know, and you've found good people along the way. But now I think it is going to be different because people are now going and doing all these courses. We recently had a couple of interns come along, and this woman came and she'd just done a course in London around Pro Tools, and she was shadowing the 2 Pro Tools people that we have, learning. And then she was really good that she'd wait her time, watch what they were doing, and then be able to ask them questions. But she never interfered while rehearsals were on. And I'm hoping they're going to bring her out as an intern to be able to learn on the ground, because you really, until you do the job and understand what being on the road is, you won't get it. But
and you will either love it or hate it. I think
that's exactly what I was going to say. You either love doing it or you'll absolutely hate it. But
there's no in between.
No, it is. So
indeed, there's no in between.
And I knew that the day that I started touring, I was like, I don't want to stop doing this. Like, I love this. And my first tour was only 32 cities throughout the US. And I thought, oh, wow. And then my next tour, when I got to go to South America with the Backstreet Boys, they called me Pollyanna, because I was just like, oh my God, I'm in Buenos Aires. Oh my God, I'm in Rio. I'm just a girl from Pennsylvania. But I think that I always said I would never take this for granted, in the sense of the travel and the experience and meeting these people. I think that you have to take each of these experiences as a learning experience, and not as a, hey, this is on my shoulder, I've been here 8 times. If I walked around like that, you're not going to be successful. You need to utilize what you learned the last time you were there, or what, like I was ordering my beer in Portuguese to you yesterday. I learned that from travel, not from being a production manager.
With Portuguese from Portugal accent, Portugal, it has to be said. It's very cute.
The nice thing is that, as Nicole said, if you can get in with your local promoter, and and even if you're going to, a lot of people are running intern programs now, so you can actually go and see from both sides. You can learn with the local promoter what their job is, and you get to see a tour come in and how it's run and when they land on the ground. And then you can see if it's something, oh, I'd like to do that, right? That job looks interesting. And then go and research how to, what you need to do that job. And I'm sure, even as your sound, you'd say exactly the same. You have to learn it.
Yeah, and it's funny. One thing that always happened with my students, sometimes they got into the course like willing to work with the artist, and then they fall in love with lighting or sound or stage. It's funny. You never know exactly where you will fit. It's
correct.
And Gabi, don't you agree?
Yeah, and also, yeah, absolutely. It's like you're learning all this theory about cooking, but you're not actually cooking. So, until you actually like chop the vegetables, you actually turn the stove on, and things start like reacting, and that's how you see how it actually works. Absolutely. And also, before people can actually think like, oh, I want to be working with the major players right now, I want to work with Coldplay, I want to work with Billie Eilish, you got to make sure if you're at a small venue, your local venue, you have a local artist playing for 12 people, if their mic's not working, you got to be able to handle that before you can actually do it in front of 10,000 people. So, yes. Like you gotta earn it, and be able to shadow and intern, and I don't know. I like I've gotten good gigs because I was at the right place at the right time carrying water. And
Yes.
by the end of the night, I knew who the diabetic person was who needed a Diet Coke.
Yep.
And then, and that's like what led me to meeting Robin, who is one of my mentors. But it's I've also learned, like, be useful. Can you be useful? Like,
Yes.
why are they going to need you there? If you did something that's useful, like Jackie was saying, the girl who learned about Pro Tools, it's also 50% etiquette. So can you hang?
Yes.
Like, like how not to ask questions, or like be on your phone, or like taking selfies with the artist, like all those things. And then, can you be useful? Like, why should they call you the next day? Why should they call you for the next gig? I think they don't teach you at school. At my school, I actually learned that. I went to MI, and they did have a live sound course, and some teachers are cool, like, hey, this is the stuff they don't tell you, but we're gonna tell you, like, don't do this. And I teach it at On Stage Lab, like, what's the best time to give your demo to the artist you're working with?
Never.
Never.
Exactly. See, never. When's the best time to take a selfie? Like, you don't.
Never.
Never. So it's those kind of things. But yeah, it's rather complex, but you have to start doing it, and then you'll know. And I was gonna ask you, like, tying in with that, what part do you think mentors played in you being where you're at in your careers, and how did you find your mentors?
I mean, I feel I had a couple different mentors and people that just said, hey, this girl's hungry and she wants to work. And so they would start. Bill Leibody put me in my first production coordinating role. I was the wardrobe girl on the tour before, and he asked me to go out with him on Enrique Iglesias. I also wanted to do anything to stay on the road. And so I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I was always a total math geek and into like school. And so I love the organizational side of production. And that's really what I feel like I'm proud of, that I have an organized manner, but also I can remember lots of things, and I could tell you where Jackie had like a sandwich with me, 6-7 years ago, and say, don't you remember we were eating those sandwiches, laughing and having a great time? But I've utilized those personal things, that your own skills that that you're good at, to force you along the way. I would have never called Bill Leibody my mentor. And we've only started saying this when I really had been, he and I took a good 6-year break from working with each other. I went off and tour managed. And when he got the Coldplay job again, they had also called me because I had done some other work with them. So it was really like a full circle for me to come back to working with him. And then he's the one that I actually said out loud, I want to be the production manager. And I think that you get to a point where you just have this working relationship where you can kind of, what each other are thinking without doing that when you do such labor intensive jobs like Coldplay or, these big shows. And I think that Bill knew that I was along the way, and then on my very first show by myself as a production manager, I had a huge weather evacuation, and all I kept thinking to myself was, channel Bill Leibody. And I still think that sometimes, I think, what would Bill do, or how would he react to this? Or, am I being crazy thinking this, But mentors, I think, are very important. I've been trying to have people shadow me, even if it's a day thing, because I want them to see how important it is to be kind and work with people. I think that we're also not, seeing sick children and things like that. So we should actually enjoy what we do. We don't have the heartache of going to a hospital and seeing COVID patients. Again, I go back to putting these people, it's their best day that they might have saved up money for a year and a half to go see that show. So I think mentors and being available to people is very important, especially as a woman. I've been trying to work with Diversify the Stage and do a few things with them. I think that people of color need to be pushed so much in this industry, because it's kind of ridiculous when you think about that there's people of color that have been touring forever, but they don't get onto a grand tour because they're more with a rap artist, or, we need to just make it the norm for all walks of life, to be included in our industry, because guess what? All these people are already there at some capacity. We just have to, we need to help and push people. I think it's so important. I think it's hard when you have people shadowing you, because you feel like, oh God, I'm barely teaching these people. But even spending one day with them is going to leave an impression. And it might it might be that same thing where they say, I don't want to be involved in this business. This is a 19-hour day, and she's going to do it again tomorrow, and then do it again tomorrow. So I think it's important. I think we need to reach out. I think we need to be, that's why I'm doing this on the day before 2 big festival shows, because I think it's important. I think as women, especially, I think I've always tried to support other women on tour. Jackie, I hope, can account for that. But it's like, I think that these things are like, it's part of what the change is in this business. It is definitely changing.
I'd have to agree with you 100% that it is changing. It's very slow. And one of the things that's very difficult is because there are so many people that need to be out on the road, it's hard to have other people. Where Nicole said, even if you spend one day with somebody, that makes a difference. Because sometimes I was lucky that I went out as a junior with 2 seasoned touring people. And I learned it from the ground, and they let me make loads of mistakes. One time I was in South America and I got somebody to translate a pass sheet, and then I went round and put them all up the wrong way. And then I had to go back and take them. But I learned and never did that again. And I let the person who translated it explain what was said rather than just make an assumption. And then my mentor was the person who owned the company. And I remember saying to him, but why can't women do this job? Why are women not touring? Why are people not senior security people? And he just said, it's just not been part of it. But if you want to do it, I will help you. And he did. And he did help me along the way. And he actually, when I went to my first interview for a client, he got me in and he prepped me for it like a proper interview. So it was, and then when I went in, I wasn't nervous of the person who it was. I sat down and I thought I did very, very well. And then when I did my first big tour, I'd gone with a male colleague who wanted the job. And he said, oh, do you want to come to LA with me to speak to the artist? And I thought, yeah. And then while we were in the interview, she said, are you coming on the road with us? I didn't even look at him. I just said, I think I will be there, because then he had no choice but to take me. And I didn't look, because I thought I'd been part of this. I answered a lot of the questions she was asking. So and he said, well, I hadn't decided on the team. I said, well, I'm on it now, aren't I? And that was it. I was on that team. And I wasn't going to wait to be invited. I wanted to do the job because it was a tour I wanted to do. And I was nervous. It was my first big tour on my own with an artist. And I don't mind. It was my first big tour was Madonna. I did a tour. That was the very first tour I did. And I was nervous, but I made mistakes, but learned from them. Yeah. And I was on my own with, just one other person. And I learned by making some mistakes. Hopefully I didn't make too many, but I just
You're still here, Jax. You're still here.
Exactly. And Madonna's still here, so we're good.
And Madonna's still here.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, it's funny. We all agreed that the business
question. Did they feel we've answered it? We've spoken. Did you feel we've answered a question?
Yeah. It's
Fabi,
funny.
ela acha que foi respondida? Que foi respondida?
I think so, yeah. Okay. I don't even remember the question, actually.
We're just having too much fun
but
over
yeah,
here.
it was.
Yeah. Something.
So we all agree that the business is changing. Do you think it's a new generation thing? Like they bring it to make it faster, like all those changes? They don't accept like some things that we did.
I don't necessarily think it's that. I think with the climate, as I always say, the climate, with what has happened and the movements that have happened, I think people have been made to look up. And that people are pointing out, and it is maybe the younger generation, people who are on social media all the time, they're saying, well, hang on a minute, why is this not happening? So I feel that a lot of it's being created. It's a movement that we need to sort of look up and say, right, we need to do something about it. If we don't strike now, we'll never, ever change things. And I don't know, and I'm sure Nicole's nodding her head, but we need to change things now. And more and more, we're having more women. We've got a female video director, a female lighting designer. The person who designs the shows, a woman who designs a lot of big shows from the Olympics, all the big shows she's involved with. And we have got a lot of women on the tour doing key jobs. Yeah. So from that, hopefully will come more people behind us. And that's one of the things I'm really interested in. Who's going to be coming behind us? And we need it to be more women. We do need it to be people of colour. And they've got to have the confidence to come, forward and want to do these jobs.
Great. We have a question from Renan Souza. And first he says, for a world with more women, with more smiley women like this in a work environment. And he's asking, what were your biggest personal achievement on your career?
Go ahead, Jax. Well, to be honest, even being a production manager for me is my biggest achievement, I would say. And then in addition to that, doing something like your first live show like SNL, where, we've all seen mistakes happen on that show. I feel like the first time I ever did it as the production manager, I'd been to the show a bunch of times. And so I wasn't like uncomfortable going into the situation. I knew what it was going to be like, but having that little bit of pressure on my shoulders was interesting. I told my husband I was walking over to have some lunch and sit outside and get some fresh air before the big, long evening. You have a long day there. And I said, I don't want to tell anybody, but I'm a little nervous. And and he said, I'm sure everybody feels that way doing that show. And I talked to Phil Giuliano, who does a lot of work for live. We love Phil.
He's one mentor for me.
He is the best. And
he's such a guy.
Such a wonderful human being, let alone what he does. But I talked to Phil not long after, and we were talking about stuff, and he said to me, if you don't think that the Jake Berrys and the Bill Levi's don't get those butterflies, you're mistaking yourself, young lady. And it put it into perspective. But I would say that. And then I also, I have my own, love and shows that were just so special to us because of, personal reasons. So to me, I'd say the biggest achievement is actually more so not just actually being the production manager, but speaking up probably and saying, I want to be the production manager.
That's great. What about you, Jack?
I think for me, I have butterflies all the time. Anytime
you do?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I walk onto a new job, and, people would say, oh, you're not a shy person, but I think I am until I get to know people. And I always have butterflies.
I am not shy in any level.
You are nervous to do this talk with us. You were the very first one who I've invited.
And that's the thing. I'm always nervous. The first day, once I get over the first day, I'm completely fine. Once I've sort of settled in and get to know everybody, I'm fine. But one of the things that I suppose, which is I'm with Nicole on that. It is about when your day ends and just that the artist says, great job today, everybody. Yep. And they're talking about everybody. And they could be just walking along with you to the car and they go, great job today. And, if they send us a text, that makes a big difference because you've done a good job. And even if your head's a department and you see everybody smiling at the end of the day, that makes my day. That really makes my day.
Yeah, that's great. There's another one from Agatha. Oh, that's a good one. How to keep a good mental health on tour?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I am terrible I am a bit of a workaholic and can just keep going, going, going. I've been getting better about, I sometimes set my alarm for say 45 minutes to work on something that's kind of sitting on my shoulders and I want to get the project done. So I sometimes set an alarm, work on it, stand up, walk around for 10, 15 minutes, come back to it. I think it's important that you set, in our roles at least, you sometimes have to set boundaries. I've been trying not to respond to the phone when it rings, like, you know, at a weird hour or whatever. I mean, it's little things like not looking at my phone first 10 minutes of waking up, which, you know, who doesn't look at it? Okay, I don't need to deal with it. Let's go back.
But can you do that while on tour?
Harder.
It's way harder. But what I do find is if I actually get up and get away from the computer for even 5-10 minutes, I come back ready to get the project done that is sitting on my shoulders. I also think that it's important to not eat at your desk, which Jackie would probably laugh because I'm constantly eating. But I know these things and I know that it's important. I also try and get a massage. I really do need to try and, you know, take care of my body. I am 45 now and it's seriously funny when you bend down to plug stuff in the production office and you make a noise every time. Oh, like that's just part of
I'm 39,
age.
I do that.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things that you have to remember, like, we have to rely on each other a little bit more. Like if I go out to the bus to get an hour's extra sleep, what difference is it going to make if I'm out there and they need me? They can come out and get me, or they call me on radio, or they call my phone. I have to release a little bit. And we shouldn't all, and this is a big problem in production office a lot of times, is everybody is working all those crazy long hours. So why don't we slowly break off people to get a little bit more rest? Or this person comes in a little later because they know I'm always going to be there for the markup, you know, things like that. We just have to talk about it and work on it. I think that it's good. I know some tours have, you know, oh my goodness, I just lost it. Like Alcoholics Anonymous on tour. They travel with different, you know, therapists, things like that. I think it's good, but I think tour is different for each person. So I think you have to find your balance. My biggest thing is on a day off. Obviously, I never really have a day off, but if I can get out and actually have a meal and separate for one evening, say to myself, it's 2 hours. Everybody else does like whatever, you know, just go do it. The world is not going to stop. And then you figure it out. You're like, oh yeah, this was fine. And then you have a refreshed new day for the next day. You're like, I had a great meal last night. This was great, you know, so.
I'm the same. I think I always make sure I have a massage. I try and get out in the air. And one of the things that I find is a fun thing, when you go to each city, I'll work out the top 5 things to do in the city, and I will try and do one of them, 2 of them if we get a chance, or I'll go for a walk where you can learn a bit more about the city. But I think it's important to get rest when you can. I agree with Nicole, because we start with production, go all the way through, you know, when the band comes, for me, it's even more work because they're on the grounds and there's more things to do with guests and families. But I think one of the things that I have learned is just to take yourself away for a minute. Nicole's right, go in your bunk, shut the curtains. Even if you're not sleeping, you're just giving yourself a rest in here. And it's long hours. And if we actually worked out our daily rate, we don't earn tons of money, but we do. It's important to give yourself a rest. And more tours are looking at mental health. They're looking at trying to make sure there's people on tour that are going to give you massages when you need them. And we even had on the last tour, Nicole, remember, we had a family bus out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where people could have their families out for a few days and they, you know, the families would be around, and then they'd have a couple of days with their families on the bus, and then another family would come. So I think that's quite important, that people get to see their families when they're away for weeks on end.
Kids are really important to have around because they bring you back to reality. Absolutely. And then we were all talking earlier, and I do travel. My husband and I travel with our dog, our darling Reggie, at Big Reg in the house. Yeah. But he is also, like I joke, but he is also the support animal for the tour. And sometimes, you know, people come in and they just lay on the floor with Reggie for a few minutes. And obviously, it's, you know, a joy to get to have him on a tour. Not every tour you would be allowed to, but Billie and the family are just so supportive of all animals, and they love Reggie. And so we're so lucky, you know, even that is just really fun to have a dog on tour. He's only 10 pounds, 8 or 10 pounds.
I would love to have a dog on tour.
Come on my tour, baby.
Do you have any mental health trick, Gabi?
Actually, I have a cool trick that I use. Well, I do try to take my yoga mat with me when I can. I have like a few things that I try to do, at least like 1 or 2 out of a few things that I have for, you know, like breathing exercises, asanas, yoga. But I pull up my Google Maps, and if it's a day off or if I have some time off, like everything's taken care of, I pull up Google Maps, and I type in ice cream.
Oh,
and so like I look at the photos and like which one looks better, and then I just go to a local ice cream shop.
I do say, I mean, besides like the travel, and I always want to go where the locals go. You know, there's no, like, if you're traveling, I mean, Americans do this. I'm really sorry to say, but a lot of Americans go to like all the Hard Rock cafes all around the world, and I'm like,
and McDonald's.
So it's the same,
I mean, you know, I get it, but for me, it's just like, wow, we're getting to go to these places. I want to experience what the locals do, you know. So, for sure, we always, as hard as we work, we make time to have some fun, because you'd be crazy not to, you know.
Indeed.
Especially when you're places that you've never ever got a chance to see. You know, you could be in India, and you can find the most amazing things to do, to eat. So it's important to take the time out. Like I said, I always try and find the top 10 things to do in that city, and you'll always find something nice to eat and somewhere to go where you've never seen before, where you probably never get a chance to go back and see. So I think it's important that we take that time, and also just to get rest and look after yourself.
Yeah.
Put on your
I know a lot of people go to the swimming pools too, which is great. I mean, I should do that more often since I have a dodgy knee now. So
you put on your own oxygen mask first, so you can actually do your job.
Well, that was a fantastic chat here. Now I want you ladies to throw away your modesty. You've been pioneering. I mean, there are not many production managers after Nicole. There are not many security coordinators after Jackie, and there are not as many audio engineers that we should have as females. So I want you to throw your modesty away and tell me, what do you think, you ladies as the first ones on this job, what's your legacy for the next females that are going to get into the industry?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I mean, first of all, I'm definitely not the first female production manager, so I know you said to throw the modesty away, but I would love for people to say she was a great leader and an organized leader, and I would want other women to be able to feel what I do when we have a talk with the crew, or when we, you know, complete a really great show. I want people to be able to feel that. And I just never thought I'd even have to say that it should matter that a woman feels any differently than a man has been feeling in all these years of live music.
Agreed.
And maybe I'm just like dorky like that I don't think of it like as I'm such a pioneer, but I would love to hope that many women will be following after that, you know, because clearly if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I think it's important. I think it's important for women to feel the worth and also to feel the respect. And I'm so fortunate. I have a team that really respect me. They come to me first before, you know, going to the stage manager or going to, you know, they do, you know, you have that respect. So that's all I can wish for. I can hope that, you know, people support other women. It really bothers me when I see people getting really hard on people. And I'm not saying I didn't have to pay my dues in a different way, probably than a man. I'm sure I did. But I just think it's really important. I hope my legacy is that they say, not only was she really fun, but she was kind and leading in the appropriate way is what I'd like.
Thank you. Jackie, what about you?
I
have to say before you start, I learned about Jackie way before I met her. You know that Coldplay has a girl security?
Well, the good thing is we've got 2 now, which is amazing.
Yeah, I know. That's great.
Security is a woman. So the fact we've got 2 women on the tour, and that's really important that we're able to support each other, because I've done her role and she understands my role. So that's been quite interesting to be able to work with another woman who's a security person. But she specializes more in close protection, where mine's obviously venues. I suppose one of the things I would like is that, yeah, people do remember you kindly and it's in a positive way, and that people who come behind you can say, well, I know she did a great job and I hope that I can now do a good job. I'd like to see more women, and I'm saying with the crowd management and with women's skills, that's a great role to now go into, and that more women will come along and want to do this job, and that they'll say, well, I've got the training and now how am I going to get on a tour? Hopefully we'll be able to, you know, find more women doing these roles. I don't always have to look and think, well, I need somebody who can run quite fast, quite quickly, where now we can probably say, okay, let's take a chance and let's try this person alongside another role. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that will begin to become more and more, and then you leave these people to pick up the reins.
Yep.
What about you, Gabi?
I think my legacy is going to be that I'm the audio engineer that doesn't use WhatsApp and doesn't have notifications on her phone. It's on silent. But I was going to say, I do have my mom, and whatever tour manager I'm working with currently is going to be on my favorites, like added to my favorites. So any calls go through if it's on D&D. No, seriously. I think also I work with bands, and I also try to encourage them and encourage women in bands, because oftentimes I work with a band and produce them that's like, oh, I don't really know how to do the solo. And I try to encourage them, because my work as a producer engineer is to make sure when they have an idea, that can actually make that idea work. So figure out ways to make that idea work. So, oh, you're trying to do something crazy with your loop pedals. It's not a crazy idea. Let's try to get that idea done. Or they go like, oh, I don't know how to do that solo. My boyfriend's going to play the solo for me. No. You play the solo. Play the solo that you can play. Play the solo that you want to play. So
it might be different, but it's going to be a solo.
But it's your solo. And the way that you play it, they're like, oh, but I'm playing it wrong. You're not playing it wrong. You're playing it your way. So I try to do that work with bands to like, and also like, oh, let's be more organized. I think like everybody says, oh, Gabi is organized. She's a pain in the butt. She wants to know all the details. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason. So when you get on stage, you don't have to worry about it, because I already worried about it for you. That's why I'm asking you all this pain in the butt questions. But that's what I think that's what I try to do. And I try to lend a hand when someone has a question. Like just today I was, talking to a girl. I produced her band, and now she's a producer herself. She's getting some equipment. She's like, oh, why do I need an insert cable for? So I'm trying to, so we can have actually more women coming, with us and just working because they want to work. They want to work with music. So
I think this business, we have to rely on other people. I mean, I still call my rigger and say, am I looking at this wrong? Or is this the right thing? Or hey, I call the electrician and say, now, when you're talking about a, three-phase, blah, 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 am I right in thinking it's this blue cable, blah, blah, you need to ask those questions for your own growth. And I think if you're afraid to ask questions or afraid to say you don't know something, especially as a woman, people think that you do not know what you're talking about. But I think that's completely wrong. I think if you're asking the questions, you're showing that you want to learn and you're here to figure it all out,
And also surround yourself with people who support that. I have a bunch of guy engineer friends. They're like, hey, you want to come over? I'm going to like set up this thing and that thing. You want to like, yeah, Gabby will, because it's fun. So just go and do the thing. You want to do the thing, do the thing.
It all comes back to it's a road family. And we spend more time with each other than we do with our own families. We miss births, deaths, weddings, graduations. We miss things. And so I do think that you need to rely on your road family to get further in your career. I mean, and I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean that in a serious, like, we have to help each other. I think now that technology and all these crazy big shows are really, it's way different from when I started touring, and so you have to be willing to ask those questions and work alongside of the others. Oh,
So good.
Great. There's a message here. It's not a question. Rêmulo Brandão is just saying that the chat is really nice, and he has a special message to Jackie Jackson that he loves and think it's the most beautiful thing in the world, the video of Chris Martin giving you a hug in the middle of the concert. I don't know about that. I have to look up.
Do you know, it's so funny because I remember I said earlier that I'm quite shy.
yes.
And Chris knows that, and he sometimes we do this thing in the show where they go out into the audience, and I was just standing at the back of the arena, and he came up and gave me a hug, and I wanted to die because Nicole would have started dancing.
I would have tried to find the spotlight.
And it's very sweet, and thank you for saying that. But it was an embarrassing moment for me during my whole day. And I think I've got to sort of try and get used to that because they're the famous people. We're not. We're there to get them on stage, and that's the most important thing for us. That we're not the artists; they are the artists. But without us, they can't do their job. So that was that. Thank you for saying that. But yes, love it.
Fantastic. Okay, final thoughts for our audience.
Just love the ones you're with, like work hard. It's not an easy job. Know that if that's what you want to get into, you gotta be sticking to this and you gotta fight the fight. But I think if you're, around people that you surround yourself with good people, only good things can happen. And trust me, you always have to weed out a few.
And that's something I think Nicole's very, very good at. She's very good. She's very kind to everybody, where I'm sort of like less tolerant of people. But I think with the crew, you'll make loads of friends, and there's some people you'll never see again. And then and that's okay too. Or you might see them 5 years down the road and they say, oh, we toured together on this tour. And that's what's quite interesting. Some people go to a 9 to 5 and they work with the same people all the time, where we don't always work with the same people. You might see them on the next tour, you might not, because they may be somewhere else, but you'll get used to new people. And I think that's a fun part of the job as well, where you get to work with different people.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Gabi, what about you? Your message?
I agree, and like I always say, your work, I tell this to the students because I teach at On Stage Lab, and I say your work is your calling card. Like, people are gonna know what you do, and that's how you might get asked for the next gig. If you're rude to someone, or you say, oh, I'm just gonna talk crap about this person behind their back, and then it's just...
I say that all the time. They will remember you when you come back into a venue, whether you were kind or whether you were a jerk. They're going to remember that because they're in that building. That's their world. You deal with lots of different kinds of people, and they will remember you no matter what. So I always try and strive and teach my crew, who is a lot of younger crew, and I try and show them, hey, look, we're walking into this building in Russia and I know somebody, like that, like they're going to help us. Or we are turning up at this crazy festival in the middle of Denmark. And here we are, somebody's waiting for us to take us because of my relationship with them. I just try and really encourage that it is how you react with people and how not, and I'm not saying you have to be like kind and lovey-dovey all the time. I know I sound like I'm just rainbows and fairies, but
there will always be a PMS around.
Sure, but I male or female.
There you go.
And that's a very, very true. Yeah. And sometimes, and I think that's one of the things I probably have learned in the last 10 years is that I know what I want, but I have to try and work within other people's boundaries. But if I get to the point where a word that I always use is okay, because I'll say okay because I now need to find another route. And as I said, once we were working in France, and the promoter is very, very all hands, and we were just pushing back at each other. I know what I wanted, I know what he wanted, and I will meet somewhere. But he just said, you always want your own way, Jackie. And I just said, thank you.
You take that as a compliment.
I took that as a compliment. Thank you. And then, but you'll come to a compromise. You have to. As I said, we were in South America and I was in Sao Paulo, and just talking to the guy, I always thought he was going to kill me, because when he looked at me and he just said, Jackie, let me just tell you, this is our country. And I want you to learn about how we work here. And I just said, you're right. And I think we had to learn how he wanted to do things, but get a compromise of how we needed things. And when I see him now, I love him to death, because I know he's going to get what he wants and I'm going to get what I want. So it's always about negotiating with people, and you spend a lot of your day doing that.
Exactly.
And also, like, word of advice, I heard something recently that really spoke to me. I can't exactly quote it or say, like, who should I attribute this quote to, but someone said, you also run the risk of failing at doing what you don't like. So if you're thinking of working in live sound or working with touring or something you really want to work with, or you want to be a touring engineer, security coordinator, production manager, it's like, oh, but no, I should do something else that's safer. You also run the risk of failing at whatever your safe option is, so you might as well go for it.
Come and do this. Come and try, come and do this. And I hope there'll be more opportunities, and that we'll meet some of the people on this in Sao Paulo. We might meet them in another part of the country, in Rio, and hopefully they'll say, I listened and I'm now doing this. That'd be good fun.
Yeah, I loved meeting you two ladies. It'd be awesome.
Thank you so much. Same.
See you on the road sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really a fantastic chat. I will invite you more oftenly. Jackie, I hope you learned that this is good, and I will hope you come back again many times.
Oh, she's going to do something tomorrow. We're off to Paris on Sunday. So I'm glad we got an opportunity. And I wasn't, but when I spoke to everybody on the lead up to this, you've all made things so easy for us. And I hope all the people listening got something out of it. And if there's any other questions, you can always fire them to us. We'll try and answer them when we can, but
yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you
Fantastic.
so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Let me just say goodbye here. Bom, gente, Gente, eu quero agradecer ao time da Onstage Lab, a Simone Fortuna, a Débora Campos, o Gustavo Valese, o Arthur Weisman e o Paulo Thiago, que estão transmitindo no YouTube e no Facebook, a nossa linda intérprete Mirna Sodré, o Wes Mesquita e a Cris Aguilera, que cuidam da comunicação, e as nossas speakers aqui maravilhosas. O Onstage Talks é um projeto pago pela Lei Aldir Blanc, ProAC LAB 60, da Secretaria da Cultura. E a gente tem outro aqui, dia 28 de outubro, falando sobre sustentabilidade. Espero vocês. E não esqueçam de seguir o canal para receber as notificações de quando a gente tem live aqui acontecendo. Thank you so much, ladies. Hope to see you soon. Go
Take
back
care.
to the road.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Obrigada.
Nice meeting
Obrigada.
you.
Tchau, gente.
Nina.
Bye,
Thank you.
bye.